Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about operating system, but first let me introduce my team first. So this is Team 4, and this is my teammates' names. On the top here we have my name, of course, Hataraki, and we have Asta, Haro, Hanoko, and also Rim. So let's just jump into our topic for today. So, when most of us think of operating system, we might immediately think of platforms like Windows, Android, macOS, or Linux, or whatever. So, while this actually is true, an operating system is fundamentally a collection of programs that work behind the scenes to manage hardware and software, saving us the trouble of handling these tasks manually. Keep this definition in mind because we will revisit it shortly. So, some popular operating systems include macOS, Windows, Android, Linux, or even Apple OS. But I think that most of you might have noticed that I added three dots down here because it turns out that there are more than 60 operating systems out there that we do not know about, or like we do not know anything about it. So, but most apps and programs are developed for the major ones I just mentioned. So, let's just focus on Linux a little bit because actually it's kind of interesting. So, unlike macOS or Windows and iOS for sure, which are closed source, meaning their source code cannot be modified, Linux is actually an open source. What does that mean? Actually, it means that anyone can modify its source code and redistribute it either for free or paid. And that's completely legal. That you will not have any legal issues trying to modify Linux because, as I just mentioned, is an open source. So the idea of modifying the source code actually includes many things or like many definitions, but the most obvious of them is the appearance. For instance, you all know that the Windows on my laptop is the same as all the Windows on your laptops. Um, so yeah, and your laptop. So uh, I mean, of course, there's some differences on the background, on and the same and the theme color, for example. But still, we have the same icons and the same control panel, and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, in Linux, there's a huge difference actually. This, for example, is Linux, and you might have noticed it's kind of similar to Windows. It's called Linux KDE. So, no, yeah. So, what the Okay, guys, just give me a second. Um, I think there's someone. Huh. Okay, that's weird. Okay. Okay, let me continue what I was. Guys, let me just finish what I'm doing, and then I will let you speak. Okay, let me continue. So, So yeah, this code is Linux KDE, which is similar to Windows. And here is another Linux desktop, but this time is resembles macOS. Like it's kind of simple. It's kind of similar to macOS, but you can notice there's some differences. But we will get back to this later. Um, so this also Linux, 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 and Linux. This was the result of 3 minutes searching online about Linux appearances, and you can find even more if you searched online. So, in Linux world, these variations are called distributions. So, how many distributions are there? Honestly, too many to count them. But here's an interesting fact. Take a look at this image. It's a map of Linux distributions. Each line branching out represents a different distributions, and there's 10 of tens of them. So There are specialized distributions for programming, gaming, design, hacking, and countless other purposes. But these are the major purposes we use Linux for. So, and this brings us to an important question: why do we even have, why do we even need an operating system in the first place? Well, as I mentioned earlier, an operating system is a collection of programs that handle complex tasks, allowing us to focus on what we want to do. And that includes dealing with memory and, yeah, some other things we do not need to know about for now, but we will revisit it. Yeah. Without an OS, or without an operating system in general, we would need to communicate directly with the computer in its native language. And I think most of you have guessed, yep, machine language, also known as binary. To give you an idea, here's a chart of characters and their binary values. For example, if I want to, for example, say hello to the computer, what it will be look like. So, if I wanted to write hello in machine language, it would be look like this. Yep. So clearly memorizing and using these binary values isn't practical because actually it's not really a good idea to try to memorize each binary value of each character here. So the to make things easier, computer scientists created assembly language, which is slightly more human readable. This is an example of assembly code to display keyboard input on the screen. For instance, you might recognize terms like maybe start here and also int, which references to refers to integer with like short integer specifically, but it's integer in general. And we have here maybe times. Um, so even though it's, yeah, we can like recognize some terms here, but it's still there's a lot of things that we don't actually understand, and even me, it's difficult for me to understand all of that. So here's another code for setting the time using BIOS interrupts, and I won't go into it and explain it because it's kind of complicated, but this is just an example. However, even assembly language can be quite complicated for regular users like us. So while these codes is actually work, they are not really user friendly. Thankfully, operating systems spare us from dealing with such complexities. We do not need really to deal with the assembly language or trying to memorize the binary value of each character. So operating system is actually like saving us a lot of work dealing with these things manually. And that's why operating systems are so important on our life and on our using for computers in general. So they allow us to interact with our computers without needing to know binary or assembly code. And this was my presentation. So does anyone here have any question? Let me back to the حد عنده أي سؤال؟ هو أنا شكلي اسمه إيه ده، آه، يا إما هو شرح كان معقد قوي يا إما إن هو ما كانش مهم، يعني ما علينا. المهم، تمام. مش بشوف أي أسئلة دلوقتي. فال يعني طبعا أنا كان بس كل اللي كنت عايزه إن أنا اسمه إيه ده أتكلم إنجليزي في البرزنتيشن بالشكل ده يعني. بس للأسف مش كلنا طلعنا يعني. فده بس كان كل حاجة على ده. فأحمد حسن. لا، شكرا جدا، شكرا. تمام. الpresentation ده برضه هارفعه على اليوتيوب عشان لو حد يعني حَب إنه يشوفه أو يوريه لحد كده، هتبقى حاجة حلوة أوي. فنشوفكم المرّة الجاية لمّا إن شاء الله هنكون نكمّل اللي هو الcourse بتاع C++. بس عايزين نخلّص امتحانات الأول عشان ما يبقاش في إيه، حاجة بتاخنا عندها يعني. فأشوفكم على خير والسلام عليكم.